Hi, my name is Henry Harvey, and I'm the liaison with Houston Community College and CenterPoint Energy. Do you know your pre-trip? When doing a proper pre-trip, the first thing you're going to do is look at the overall condition of our vehicle. So when we approach our vehicle here, we start at the top and work our way down. The first thing we want to look for is to make sure that the vehicle's not leaning to one side or the other. That's the first indication that you may have a broken leaf spring and the leaves are causing the suspension to not allow the vehicle to roll down the road straight. Then you start at the top and you look at all your clearance lights. All your clearance lights should be burning and no cracks on them. You look at your windshield. All your windshields should have no cracks and any appropriate stickers that are supposed to be on it. Then you want to look at the fender and make sure that there's no damage on the truck from previous use. Then you want to look at all your headlights and turn signals on your truck. You want to look at your grill on your truck and make sure your radiator doesn't appear to have any leaks. As you work down, then you want to look underneath the truck to make sure that if you see any puddles under the truck, what side of the truck those puddles are on. So once we open up the cab, then we start using process of elimination to find where those puddles are coming from. Now that we have checked the front of the truck, now we're going to check everything on the engine compartment in sections, from the engine compartment down to the frame, down to our suspension, to our brakes, to our wheel area. You want to name all sections and name them all in a systematic repetition in order for you not to forget anything. So we're going to start with the engine compartment overall condition. We're going to check all hoses. Hoses condition should be there should not be cracked or dry rotted or leaking. The connections where the hose connect to should be in good condition. In this case, this is the water hose coming off of the radiator that's going into the top of the water pump. If you're trying to find different items on this side of the truck, find the hose, and the hose will take you down to the water pump. Water pump in this CenterPoint truck is located on the top of the engine block. It is a gear-driven apparatus. Then we have some more hoses here. Check them again the same way we did earlier for dry rot, cracks, or leaks. This is the hose coming off the air conditioning compressor, which controls the climate inside the truck. The air conditioning compressor condition should be properly mounted. That means not loose. It is a belt-driven apparatus. The belt's condition should be no cracks, frays. There should be no less than 3/4 of an inch of free play on the belts. All the wires coming off of the apparatuses on this side, they should have insulation around them, and there should not be any bare wires. They should not be cracked. And again, all hoses on this side. And so as we come down, this is our alternator. Its condition should be that alternator should be properly mounted. That means not loose. It is a belt-driven apparatus. That means the belts on it should not be cracked, frayed, glazed, no more than a 3/4 of an inch of play. And then the positive and negative wires, they should be tight on the back of the alternator and no bare wires showing. And then we come on down to our frame. Our frame should have no cracks. There should have no repaired weld spots on the frame. All our bolts and nuts should all be present and tight on the frame. Then we have our coolant level. Our coolant level on this side is a sight glass. It should be at the proper level, no more than 2 inches below the cap. Then we want to come on down and identify our suspension. Now I know you can see the windshield wiper fluid here. You can check that and make sure it's a sight glass and it's at the proper level. This is called our spring mount. It is connected to the frame. It holds our entire suspension to the frame. These are the individual springs that connect to the spring mount. These individual leaf springs condition should be no cracks or broken leaves. They should be stacked in alignment with each other. The spring suspension is held onto the axle of the truck by U-bolts. These are your U-bolts. Their condition should be tight. No indications of looseness on the U-bolts, which would be shiny metal. Those are always indications on the suspension that something is not stable, that it's moving. And of course, you have your shock absorber. The shock absorber is connected to the frame as well as down at the bottom of the steering axle. It should have no leaks, properly mounted. And of course, on the back end of your leaf springs, you have a second spring mount that is connected to the rear part of the frame on the front part of the truck. Now we're coming on out from the suspension to the brake system. This is our brake hose. It carries air from the brake pedal to the brake chamber. The condition of the hose should be no cracks, no audible leaks. This is our brake chamber. The brake chamber takes air from the brake hose and creates like a push inside there, like a diaphragm, and it pushes a push rod that's located down here on the back side of the brake chamber that is connected to the slack adjuster. The slack adjuster then moves out on the brake chamber, which then turns the cam down here at the bottom. The cam pushes the brake pads up against the brake drum. The condition of the brake pads should be no less than 1/4 inch of thickness on the brake pads located down inside the drum. The condition of the drum, there should be no oil inside the drum. Oil would not allow the friction necessary between the brake pads in order to slow down the wheel's rotation. There should be a present cotter pin that connects the push rod to the slack adjuster. That must be present. Also on the slack adjuster is an adjusting nut. This is your adjusting nut in this area. That completes our brake system. Now we're going to come on out to our wheel area. On our wheel, we want to check our tire first for inflation, condition, and depth. The inflation on this tire should be at least 85 to 100 psi. The condition on the tire, there should be no hickeys or bubbles on the inside or outside of the belly of the tire, and no uneven wear on the tread depth. Because this is a steering axle, there should not be reconditioned or recapped tires on the steering tire. And the tread depth should be at least 4/32 of an inch. On your other wheels, on the rear of the tractor or the trailer, can be 2/32 of an inch. That brings us on out to our rim. Our rim should have no cracks, no repaired well spots on the rim, and the rim should be straight, not bent. These are our lug nuts. They must all be present and no indications of looseness on the bolt. The nuts, if there was looseness, you would see rust spots running from behind the nut, which indicates that that water has come from behind it. Then you want to check your outer axle oil seal. This seal keeps the lubrication inside the seal, which is your axle oil, and it lubricates the ball bearings on the wheel. Now we're over on the left side of the truck. We start the same way we did on the right side, which is we check all hoses. We want to look at all hoses and make sure that those hoses have are in the proper condition. They should not be cracked. Indications of leaks. There should not be any kind of dry rot. All hoses. And as we move down, we'll continue to see other hoses and wires. Our wires should have some type of cushion on those wires. They should not be frayed. Those wires should not be loose. They should have some type of insulation on them. And now this is our oil dipstick. The oil dipstick, the oil should be at the proper level, which is above the refill line. Then we come on down, we're running across some other hoses. Again, checking the hoses the same way. Now on the left side of the truck, you have hoses just like you have on the right side. So you would check all hoses, all wires the same way. So the actual moving parts on this side that are present that were not on the right side is your air compressor. Your air compressor is what generates the air that stops your vehicle. It also gives you your seat control to let your seats up and down. It works your airbag suspension if you have it. It is a gear-driven apparatus. Its condition should be properly mounted, not loose. And all the hoses coming off the air compressor should be in the condition that hoses should be in, not cracked, leaked. Then that brings us to our steering system. Here's our steering system. This right here is called the knuckles on our universal joints on the steering system. This right here is our steering shaft, which connects to the bottom end of the steering wheel inside the truck. This is called the steering gearbox. Its condition should be properly mounted. That means not loose or hanging. This is what we call the pitman arm. It is a part of the linkage. It is what moves forward and back when the steering wheel is turned that generates the gears here. This is our power steering fluid reservoir. We want to have a sight glass to make sure the power steering fluid is at the proper level. If you're worried about or where the power steering pump is, follow the hoses off of the reservoir as well as off of the steering gearbox, and it'll take you down behind the frame of the truck here, and you'll see the power steering pump. As we come on out, all this parts of the pitman arm, castle nut, castle pin should be present to make sure the nut doesn't back off of the bolt. This is a drag link. This is all considered linkage. You want to check that to make sure it's in good condition because it controls the direction of your vehicle. We have the same thing on this side we had on the other side. We have a suspension that we check the same way we did originally. We have the spring mounts, etc. We have the shock absorber, etc. We have a brake system on this side. We check this the same way we did on the other side, and we have the wheel area on this side, and we check it the same way we did on the previous side. Remember, you always want to have a system where you start at the top and work through all three sections that you have in the engine compartment. Engine compartment, suspension, brakes, and in this case, you have the steering system. Now that brings us to the driver fuel area. This is a different section of the truck that is a part of your walk around. First thing you want to do is make sure that your mirror brackets are tight, that are going to support the mirrors, that the mirrors themselves are tight and that they're clean. You don't worry about adjustment from the outside. You adjust the mirrors from the inside when you're sitting behind the seat of the steering wheel. Your door should open from the outside as well as the inside. Your windows should be able to go up and down. Your steps should be able to support you on the truck. Check the steps. You want to make sure the hand railings are going to support you in the driver fuel area. You have your fuel tank. You want to check the cap on the fuel tank to make sure that there's a gasket on the inside of the cap of the fuel tank. A gasket inside the fuel tank cap. The fuel tank should be properly mounted. No leaks underneath the fuel tank. We continue to move down and we check more steps on this particular center point vehicle. Then you have your battery box. Behind your battery box or underneath your battery box, it should be securely mounted. The batteries should have no corrosion on the battery posts, and the positive and negative wires should not be bare. Underneath our vehicle, we have a drive shaft. We want to look at our drive shaft and make sure that we have universal joints up on the front of the drive shaft that comes off the back of the transmission, and you have universal joints that connect to the differential. You want to check that to make sure that it's properly mounted, doesn't have visual indications of looseness, or look like there has shiny or broken pieces underneath the drive shaft. As we walk on down, we move up, and we want to make sure all our storage compartments, doors, lockers, are secure, that they don't open during the course of your ride. It brings us down now to our drive axles and our drive tire. Now, just like we checked earlier, anytime we have tires, we check them the same way. Our drive tires, if we have duals, we should make sure that the two tires which are on the same rim have the proper spacing. They're called spacers. The two tires that make up the duals should not have mismatched ply. That means the tread design on the outside tire should be the same as the inside tire. And then, of course, we check the lug nuts and rim the same way we did on the other side. Any wheel we check the same way. We have a suspension here. It's a heavier gauge suspension because the rear part of the vehicle is heavier than the front part of the vehicle. But it's still a spring mounts, and of course we have airbags that are located on this vehicle. The airbags are located on the back side here. Now we're going to talk about the coupling system to the rear of our vehicle. These items all have specific names. We'll start with this item here. It's called your safety hook, and it's attached to your safety chain. Make sure that they are high enough off the ground and that they're secure on the back of the frame of your truck. This right here is called the pintle eye. This is your pintle hook that the eye slips down over the top of. They should be properly mounted. No missing bolts, no cracks. This is your locking mechanism. You can call it a locking jaw. This item here is called your safety latch, which keeps the locking jaw from coming loose during the course of the ride. And then this is your safety pin, which keeps your safety latch from coming too far forward, which releases the locking jaw. This is your trailer air supply line. It takes air from the truck's air tank reservoir to the trailer to release the spring brakes so the trailer can roll freely down the roadway. This is your service brake air line, identified as a blue color. This is operated by the foot brake. This is what slows the trailer down for normal operation when you're rolling down the roadway. This is your electrical line. It connects to the back of your truck and goes to the trailer to give you lighting supply for your left and right turn signals, your four-way flashers, your clearance lights, running lights, as well as your license plate light. This apparatus here is called your tow bar. That is connected to the pintle eye that connects to the front of the trailer. To the front of your trailer, if you don't have a headache right or what they call a header board, you may have a railing system. The railing system should not be cracked. No missing bolts. You have landing gear. Here's your landing gear crank and handle, and here's your sand pad on your landing gear. We have clearance lights, amber in color, that identifies the front of the trailer. They must be burning, or a amber reflector. We have our reflective strips that are also should be present on the trailer. These strips reflect the light, which identifies to an oncoming driver that there is something in the roadway. This is a part of the frame of the trailer. The frame should not have any cracks, no repaired weld spots. Those are totally legal on a commercial CMV. If we have a storage box, that storage box should be secure and not going to come loose during the course of the ride. We have the floor. The floor should be able to support any backhoes or any kind of equipment. There should be not any holes on the floor or dry rot. We look underneath the trailer, and we should have cross members on the trailer for the frame that support the floor. Again, no cracks, no repaired weld spots. A step should support our driver. We have another set of duals back here. We check our duals on the trailer the same way we check them on the tractor. There should be proper spacing between the duals. The tires should not be mismatching ply. It's a repeat of what we did on the tractor. The inflation condition and depth, 185 to 100 PSI. No uneven wear, no bubbles and hickeys. Lug nuts all present, rim not cracked, no repaired weld spots on the rim. Axle oil seal, the axle oil should be at the proper level that lubricates the ball bearings inside the axle. We check these duals the same way when you have them in tandem, the same way we did earlier. Takes us to the rear of our trailer. When we get to the rear of the trailer, we should have splash guards no more than 8 inches off the ground. This is our ABS light. It activates when you plug the vehicle in, the lights up, lets you know you have ABS. You'll have an indicator inside the truck. At the rear side of the trailer, you should have a red clearance light and or reflector that identifies the rear of the vehicle. On our tail end of the trailer, we should have stop lights, turn signals, at least 3 red clearance lights, and a burning license plate light. Okay, now we're about to complete the circle walk around of the truck. Everything that's on the right side of the trailer and truck was on the left side. And as we walk on, we're checking everything we did on the right side of the truck that we checked on the left side of the truck. Wheel area, coupling system, rear of the truck, includes the tandems, or the duals, includes our step, lockers, steps, and then the final thing is our exhaust system. This is our exhaust system. On our smokestack, there should be no black soot or cracks coming from the tailpipe. This is the actual muffler right here, and a part of the exhaust system. There should be no black soot, cracks coming from here, and properly mounted. It should not be loose. Okay, this is the way you would do a pre-trip when you're applying it to your everyday use. Make sure you have a system where you don't forget anything. Name all of it and name it the same way every time. This protects you, the company, and the motoring public. When you know the names and how to recognize malfunctions on your pre-trip, this process should take no more than 7 to 10 minutes. Now, for those that are getting ready to take the driving test, you'll need to be able to explain this, and it may take up 30 minutes to 40 minutes because you want to thoroughly explain what each item is, how it functions, and how to tell if it is malfunctioning. When we get ready to do the inside part of the inspection on your commercial vehicle, drivers need to make sure you have a driver vehicle inspection report. You need to read the report from the previous day to see if there was anything malfunctions on the truck and if they had been repaired. And then you begin to fill out the book for the day that you're beginning, because you're required to do a pre-trip and a post-trip at the end of each day. It's a DOT regulation, and there should be written documentation that you did such, and it should be present in every truck. And so the engine start of the pre-trip is when we start the vehicle up, we need to be able to name and everything associated with the vehicle. Okay, so we're going to start up our vehicle. Once we start our vehicle up, we want to have a system just like we did on the outside of the truck and work our way across. We need to name everything. On the inside, you have the opportunity to be able to read the names of the items, or you'll see symbols that'll represent what those items are. So you start on one side and work your way across. So the first thing you want to do is you tell the examiner, as well as if you're applying this to your daily routine, is to look at your mirrors and make sure your mirrors are properly adjusted. While you're looking at your mirrors, look across your windshield to make sure your windshield doesn't have any cracks, and that there are all the appropriate stickers on the windshield. And then what you want to do is start on the left side and work your way across, putting your finger on everything. This is our cruise control, the speed adjustment. Then we have our headlights. On is when you flip it up, in the middle is off, flipping it down puts our park lights on, which are just the clearance lights. And then down here, you have your increase and decrease of the setting of your idle on the truck. Now, I'm going to come on across, and then you have the oil pressure gauge. Your oil pressure gauge, once you start the vehicle up, you should see that the gauge is working by seeing the gauge rise. This is what you have to explain to the examiner when you're taking the test. You want to look at your coolant temperature, which is your water temperature. You should see that beginning to rise as the truck is idling. Then you have your RPM gauge, then you have your speedometer, then you have your fuel supply. You have your primary air gauge, which handles those things associated with the truck, and your secondary air gauge, which is associated with the trailer. You should see those rise. Then, of course, as we move across, we have our marker lamps. This basically cuts the lights, makes the lights flash. Then we have what we call our differential. This locks in the four-wheel drive if you have a tandem, or locks both sides of the wheels when you are doing off-road driving conditions. Make sure this is never on. This is only on when you are off-road going across a field in muddy conditions associated with four-wheel drive, which keeps you from sticking. Anytime you're driving faster than 15 miles an hour, this should not be on. This is our transmission box, knowing how to put it in gear, reverse, neutral, and drive. We come on across, and then we have different switches here. This is our light test. Here is our parking brake. This is our trailer brake. Read everything that you see inside. Push to release, pull to apply the brake. Trailer air supply, not for parking. Only time you use this is when you're hooked up to a trailer. If you're not hooked up to a trailer, you never bother it. This is for operation of the truck. And then, of course, we have our suspension. You see it's got a little indicator that shows that when it lets the airbags up and down on the back of the suspension. This should never be moved or touched. It should always be in the up position, inflated. Then we have our cooling and heating system. We have our fan, we have our cooling that decides if we have face and foot, face only, and of course our defrost. And then we have our thermostat control. Down here we have our 3 red reflective triangles, which we put out at 10, 100, and 200 feet on a divided highway. This is our heating and cooling system. We have our fan motor, we have our defrost, as well as our dashboard controls that allows the air to blow to our face and feet, as well as to the windshield for defrost. And then we have our climate control, or some people refer to as your thermostat. The little red box holds our 3 reflective triangles, which we put out in the event of an emergency roadside stop, and we place them 10, 100, and 200 feet to the rear on a divided highway. If you have a single highway that's only divided by a divider line, you'd place 1 triangle 100 feet to the front, 1 triangle 10 feet to the rear, and the third triangle 100 feet from the rear. Bring us over to our steering wheel. Our steering wheel should have no more than 2 inches or 10 degrees of free play on a 10-inch steering wheel. We check our left turn signals, our right turn signal indicator, our 4-way flashers, our windshield wipers to make sure they come on and off, our windshield wiper fluids to make sure that they work. Then we talk about our seat belt. Our seat belt should be able to fasten, and you'll fasten that seat belt in front of the examiner and let her see that it opens and closes properly. Then you always should have your spare fuses inside the truck. Our fire extinguisher is located to the rear of the truck. We want to make sure that it's properly charged, that it has a safety tag on it that shows that it has been inspected, and it shows that it's full. We check our brake pedal. We check our accelerator pedal. Once we've done everything associated with that, then you tell your examiner that you're going to perform an air brake test. So we've built our air pressure up to 120 psi. And then what we do is we cut our truck off. Okay, without touching on the foot brake, you release your park brake. and your trailer brake. You make sure that your ignition is back on. And then you count for 1 minute. During that time, you should not lose no more than 3 psi. Then after that, you put 90 pounds of pressure with your foot brake, with your right foot. And stepping on the brake, you count again for 1 minute. During that time, you shouldn't lose no more than 4 psi. Then after that, you're going to pump your brakes. You're going to pump. Low air pressure warning light comes on. That tells the examiner that your low air pressure warning light is working. You're going to tell her I'm going to continue pumping, and at 40 psi should come on. The trailer air supply valve should pop out. At 20 psi, the parking brake should pop out. But sometimes between 40 and 20, they both may pop out. And so you continue to pump. Looking at the valves. Then you tell your examiner the air brake test is complete. You then start your engine up, remove your chocks from under the wheels, and then build your air pressure back up to 120. That completes your engine inside part of your pre-trip. This has been a pre-trip. My name is Henry Harvey, and we're with Centerpoint.